Okay, I'm gonna try this again, y'all. I don't know what's going on with this camera and this tablet, but it's giving me a hard time. So I'm gonna try this again. But those were just some things that I picked up intuitively in the reading. I'm about to go ahead and tap into her energy personally, and if there's anything that she has to say or want to speak on, then we can do that. The first thing I'm gonna obviously talk to her about is the plane crash, things surrounding that, how she feels, what she thinks. Um, the first thing that she's saying is that that day I was tired. She's saying that she was really tired. She was not feeling herself. She was just exhausted from the shoot. Um, she's saying that not only was I shooting the music video at that time, but she was also filming shooting a documentary. Um, I believe it was for like VH1 or something. So she said it was just a very draining experience. That last day was really that whole experience. But specifically that last day, she's saying she was really tired, really exhausted. She was ready to go. She's saying I just wanted to go to get back home. I wanted to wrap up everything. We had been out there for a few days. We've been working hard, and I was ready to leave. She says that we weren't supposed to leave that day. We were supposed to leave the next day. Um, she's saying that she received a phone call. It sounds like this phone call could have possibly come from maybe her uncle or someone within the label. And they were basically telling her, hey, we have a plane for you today. She's saying that I thought I would be leaving the following day, but I received a call. And in that call, they basically told me that they had a plane already chartered for me and that I could go home sooner. She's saying, and I jumped on that because I was ready to go and I was exhausted. She's also saying that she kept in contact with Dane that entire time she was there. She said we were talking on the phone constantly. And she says, I admit I was ready to get back to him and I was ready to get back to my brother and my mom and my family. And so it was a no brainer for me to go home early, she's saying. She's also saying that a few of the other passengers that perished, they were also pushing the idea of leaving early. She's saying they were ready to go as well, and she's saying that it was a group decision for them to leave early and not stay until the following day. She also says that she had a conversation with the pilot before takeoff. She says, I didn't feel comfortable with the size of the plane. I didn't feel comfortable with, um, she said, I didn't feel comfortable with the size of the plane. I didn't feel comfortable with the pilot of the plane. I didn't feel comfortable with, she says, I just wasn't comfortable with the entire situation. She says, had never heard of this airline before. She says, I called my uncle and she said, he assured me that everything was safe, everything was okay with the plane, the pilot. She says, I was under the impression that the pilot had experience, he had his license, he had been given security clearance to drive this plane. She's also making me feel like uh, she says I called Dame right before takeoff and I told him how uncomfortable I was with the plane and he told me not to get on the plane if I felt uncomfortable. She also says I called my brother and he was worried for me. She says her brother was worried for her. She says I always had a fear of flying. She says she always had a fear of flying. She said as even as a little girl, I always had a fear of heights. So she said she was from the rip just not comfortable with the plane at all. She says um, I already didn't have a good rapport with getting on planes anyway because I had a fear of flying. But just seeing this plane, she says it's almost a feeling of going into a panic attack. Is how she's making it seem. It's kind of almost as if I went into a panic attack when I saw the size of the plane. She also wants me to know that one of her bodyguard, he was very attentive to her. She says she wants to thank him. She says he was very attentive to me. She wants me to shed a spotlight on him. She says his family would have been so proud. He was very attentive. He made sure that I was comfortable the entire time. She said he just really comforted me. He held my hand. He she says he really, in those last moments, brought me comfort. She says that as soon as she got on the plane, she says I immediately began to fall asleep. I was tired and I was beginning to fall asleep. She says, but she felt some turbulence going on, and that immediately woke her up because she says, I usually didn't fall asleep. She says, I'm usually not the type to fall asleep on a flight. Um, but she says, this particular time, I was just so exhausted. I felt myself drifting off. And she says, when we hit turbulence, I immediately woke up. She says, everything happened in a split second. She says,